Don't you hate when you just record for a long time and don't realize that your microphone isn't turned on? So anyway. Temporarily just put the battery box back in here so I could see how it's all going to fit in relation to the seat, and I went ahead and attached their little bracket just loosely to the front to see what I'm working with here. Here at the very front you got this bracket that sticks out with these two pieces here, which almost line up perfectly with these two bolts. So I'm thinking I might be able to drill a couple holes here, take this old bracket off, but use these bolts to attach it just like so. That would certainly be convenient if that works. Looks like the first thing I'm going to want to do is get rid of this flange right here so this whole piece can sit flush and not be raised up by this edge right here. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'll probably just grind it off. After looking at this bracket again, I think I might just be able to flip it around the other way and it might work actually better and I won't have to grind it. Just drill holes. Kind of like that. I think that's going to work. It looks like the rear brackets are going to work and they can attach on either side right here in the flat parts on the inside of where the shocks mount. But they're just flopped a little bit leaning into the inside because the mounting bolts are really close to the this back bar here. But I think if I widen, I'll pull it out. If I widen the slots right here, actually make them wider, not any longer, their length is fine, they're just not quite wide enough, but if they were a little wider, instead of sitting in there all tilted like that, they'd have enough room to slide over and be flat and meet at a 90 degree between the seat and where I plan to mount it right up in here, if that makes any sense. Now it's looking like I need to put a bend in these to where they sit more flush and flat to the inside of where this shock mounts right here to make it easier to attach. So I'm going to put a bend in both of them and that should work. I realized that I forgot to clean the paint off of the parts where I plan on welding. So I had to take everything back off and do that. And I think I might be able to get a tack in right here in this open slot. Maybe. We'll see. Golly, I can't see what I'm doing. Oh, that's just terrible. Well, at least I think it'll stay put. It's terrible, but that's what the grinder's for. When I said I couldn't weld for crap, I wasn't kidding. Probably doesn't help that I'm out of gas and using flux core wire. Certainly not helping. Next, I'm just going to go through and hit a few spots with some primer. I'm not really worried about taping off shocks or anything like that. That's getting replaced, and I'm not going to be shooting down towards the engine, but I still have to go and completely clean it up and get it polished and everything, so I'm not extremely worried about it. I'm gonna let that dry a few minutes and hit it with a second coat. I know how wonky this looks, but I only intend to paint the frame in pieces, so it'll make things a little easier. So I've just blocked off this back part of the engine to do the back half of the frame. And as I said before, if I get some overspray on part of the engine or something like that, it's not a big deal. I can just wipe it off with some acetone, and I still have to go through and do a bunch of work on the engine as far as polishing and getting it cleaned up anyway. So not too worried about it. I've got the primer scuffed up a bit, and I'm gonna go ahead and start putting a little black on here and see what it looks like. Once again, not worried about these shocks. They're already beat up and getting replaced. And not making a show bike, just a neat cafe racer to tool around town. Maybe get to work for really cheap on gas. Any little nooks and crannies, I can go back and get those with a brush. So my next step here is to get this battery box all cleaned up. And first thing I'm going to do is get this stuff off of here so I can get it all cleaned up and painted. And I'm going to be removing this bottom part because I won't be needing that. And it looks like it's been spot welded or something onto there. It's actually kind of hard to tell how they exactly attached it. But I'm just going to have to start whittling away at it, cutting away, and then figure out how to just get this deleted. Been trying to come up with the best way to cut this off of here, and even if I had a brand new disc on this cutoff wheel, I could get in there pretty decent, but I'd still be leaving a lot. And on this side, not so much, and it just kind of seems like it would be a bit of a pain. So it looks like the best option would actually be the reciprocating saw and just getting it right down in there and seeing if I can lop this off of here. The worst I can do is try it and see what happens. See which would be better for this, either the reciprocating saw or the trusty cutoff wheel. Okay, trusty cutoff wheel. I need to go ahead and get the ignition switch bracket painted as well. Since I'm not taking the engine off the bike to do anything, I still have to contend with things like this, the bracket here and these corroded bolts and nuts and everything. So I'm gonna hit it with the rotary tool, a wire brush in there, and get all these cleaned up. And this part I'll just probably paint by hand, just using a little brush. Went ahead and hit the acorn nuts here just to kind of clean them up a little, but unfortunately now I've worn my, whoop, come into focus there. I've worn the wire brush bit on this rotary tool clear down to the nub in very short order. I'm using a brass bristle brush just to kind of get in some of these nooks and crannies. Just kind of get some of this surface scale off of the aluminum. Just the first step to getting all this cleaned up. I'm gonna go ahead and get this clutch cable out of here. It's gonna be replaced anyway, because this one is just really dry rot and got cracks and stuff all going through it. So it will definitely be replaced. If I can just get it out of here. Jeez Louise. And that will make this easier to clean up off of the bike. So I'm going to use this part to see how I'm going to proceed on the rest of the case of the engine. I've got some water here and some 500 grit sandpaper. You always want to use the water because it keeps the sandpaper from getting clogged and keeps it nice and lubricated as well. If the aluminum isn't in too bad of a shape, you can usually skip straight to just using polish. But when it's this bad, with 50 years worth of corrosion going on, you're better off doing a little bit of sanding first. All right, let's see what a little polish does. All right, we're gonna see how this does with just a little mother's polish on here on the angle die grinder and a polishing wheel. I have a buffing wheel on my benchtop grinder, but I'm not going to be able to use that on all the engines, so I figured I would use this since this is what I would be using for the other parts that are still attached. Yeah. Okay, so I definitely need to get a little more aggressive with the sanding because there's still some discoloration and stuff here and there where I just need to go a little further. But I think I'm going to like that look. It's not like a mirror finish, which I don't want it to be anyway. So I think that'll be the method, the 500 grit and then switching straight to the mother's polish. So I'm going to hit this again with some sandpaper and see if we can get it just the way I want it. All right, it's actually been a couple days since I left off here. Had to work. And since then I've picked up some more aggressive sandpaper. See if I can make shorter work of this. I was using 500 and I picked up some 220, so it's over twice as aggressive as what I had before. And there's a bug in my water, gross. So we'll see how this does. All right, I went over all of this again with the 220 and then swiped over it a little bit with the 500. Get some of the sanding marks out. We'll just give it a polish and see what it did. There's just a ton of corrosion and pitting and stuff going on with this aluminum. It's looking pretty good. Now I just got the arduous task of going over the whole engine case like that. Fun. One thing I've been especially curious about are these exhaust, can't think of the word, brackets or something like that. These exhaust parts, because this is extremely corroded. So I want to see what I can do with it with the wire wheel. And if it just looks like trash after that, I'll probably just go ahead and paint them with some sort of high temp exhaust paint so they don't look too bad, but it's pretty bad right now. Really. Cat, quit hitting the tripod. Really rusted up. Well, unfortunately, that's all I can get to with the big wheel here. If I'm going to make any progress, I'm going to have to use the little rotary tool with one of the tiny wire brushes in it. Tedious. I can actually get in here decently well with the wheel on the drill. This part actually turned out pretty well after using that wire wheel on there in the drill. And this was the worst of the two, so I'm pretty confident that the other one will turn out just as good, if not even a little better. Now I'm going to see about cleaning up these header pipes. See if I can get all this grime off of here just with some solvent. It's like baked on oil. It seems to be coming off though. Anything stuck on there really bad, I can always use a wire brush to help clean that off. I'd say my best bet for getting rid of all of this corrosion would be the wire wheel on the bench grinder. Now I'll see what kind of progress I can make with this chrome polish. I'll just do half. And then flip it over for the other half. All right, let that dry to a haze for a few minutes and then buff it off. You might be thinking, what in the world is he doing? He's painting with a brush, but he's getting paint all over the letters. Well, I have a trick to do with that. So all I got to worry about is making sure that all the parts that are supposed to be black are black. All right, it's been a little while and this is dry now. And here is how I'm gonna get the paint off of the letters and where I don't want it. On the end of my rotary tool, I have one of the little polishing bits, but it's completely dry. There's absolutely nothing on it. I just took it right out of the pack and put it on there bone dry. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you already haven't, and hit the notification bell so you'll know when the next part of the series comes out. And until next time, see ya.